Did you put Don Lewis through the meat grinder and feed him to your cats? So, Carole, I just read you your Miranda rights. You know your rights. You are freely speaking with me today. This is going to be an interview. The date is April 6th, 2020. The time is currently 8:35 p.m. And you understand your rights, and you understand that you can stop talking to me at any time. You don't have to answer any questions.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so would you like to answer any questions that I have right now?
Sure.
Okay, Carole. Well, thank you for coming in. You came in here under your own free will. Just have a few questions with everything that's been going on here recently. We're getting some new evidence, and we're looking back into the case of Don Lewis going missing. So the first question I have for you, Carole, is it true that the night that you and Don met, you and your previous husband, your ex-husband, were arguing, and you had to throw a potato at your ex-husband just to leave the house? Is that true, Carole?
Yes, it is true.
What? Tell me, Carole, why was there so much tension that you had to throw an object just to be able to get out the door?
Well, I had to distract him a little bit. The fight had got pretty intense, and he was trying to keep me in the house. He didn't want me running off, so I used it to be able to escape the house.
Okay, and is it also true, Carole, that same night after you threw the potato and got out of the argument with your previous husband, that's when you met Don Lewis, and that's when you held Don Lewis at gunpoint because he said to?
Well, yes, that is true. I was walking down the street, crying and pacing. When I get stressed out, I tend to act like a cat. I think that's why we get along so well. But I was, in tears, and Don pulled up next to me and, asked me to, if everything was okay, if he could help. And I just kind of blew him off, and, he drove by again the second time, and the same thing. And then finally on the third time he drove up, and the gun was in the seat, and he said, "You can hold that gun up to me, and if that makes you feel comfortable." And I did it. I got in the car and I held the gun up. He said he needed somebody to talk to, and we talked.
Next question. We're going to fast forward a little bit through your and Don's relationship. You guys started out buying cats and kind of got started in that venture together. But soon after, when you guys started up the zoo and you had, a lot of cats under your belt, in your control, is it true, Carole, that you guys really didn't feel the same way about the animals? You wasn't for the breeding, and Don, he looked at the animals as, kind of as a pet, as a wow feature. He liked the cubs. He liked to go down to Costa Rica to breed the cubs because there was no breeding laws down there. Is this true, Carole?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
And did this cause any tension in the relationship? Because you seem like you are, from what it sounds like, you are very adamant on how the cubs get treated and very against the breeding.
Yeah, we had very different viewpoints on the animals for sure. When he would go down to Costa Rica, any chance I could, I'd spay and neuter as many of the cubs as I could to prevent them from being bred.
Did this ever cause any problems within the relationship? Did this ever anger you? Did this ever cause you guys to get in arguments? How did this affect the relationship?
Well, yeah, we had our fights for sure.
Next question I'm going to ask you, this one, when it comes to the evidence, it's hard not to take a look at this. This one kind of sticks out to us. And several months before Don's disappearance, he went to the court to file a restraining order against you, and he said that there was several times where you guys got into arguments, and it was so bad that you threatened Don's life if he would not leave the house. Why did this happen? Did you ever threaten Don's life?
Well, not purposely, you say some things when you get in an argument, you get heated, and you say some crazy things, when in the moment. I never actually meant that I was going to follow through with it, but, we had our fights and arguments, and it got heated, and things were said, and, but I never actually followed through or meant anything that I said.
But you did threaten Don's life if he would not leave the house.
From technical speaking, sure, I threatened him, but, like I said, it's just heat of the moment. Didn't really mean it. I didn't follow through with it.
Okay, Carole, well, if you didn't mean to threaten Don's life, tell me why he mentioned to his ex-wife, the mother of his children, that you were dangerous, that they should stay away from you, and that he was honestly scared of you. Why would Don, your own husband, Carole, be scared of you? Tell me that. If you didn't threaten his life and you didn't violently have anger against him, why would he be scared, and why would he warn his family?
I don't know. I don't know why anybody would think that about me. I don't think I've ever given off anything, remotely close to that. I don't think anybody should be scared of me.
Well, Carole, one thing that could cause problems in a relationship is if one of the spouses is cheating on the other, and it was pretty known that Don kind of liked to sleep around. He didn't want to be settled down and tied down to one woman. And even though you were a younger woman, did it bother you that Don was going down to Costa Rica and had girlfriends down there? And did it bother you that he was sleeping around with other women? Did this cause you to have violent outbursts and threatening his life?
Well, no. He did tend to have a wandering eye, but, it was never that big of a deal because I spent most of my time with the animals and the cats, taking care of them, and, that was pretty much it.
So you were with Don for the money?
No, not for the money, no. I loved him, but, we had different viewpoints on things, and that's about how it goes, right?
If you say so, Carole. In your diary, there were several articles and several passages where you mentioned that things wasn't going too well, and you were scared of leaving. You couldn't get out of the situation, and you didn't know what you was going to do, and you would do anything to get out of it. Why would you be tied down and trapped by Don? Would the fact that Don, when he left you, the fact that when he left you, he was going to take all of his money with him. He was going to take Big Cat Rescue. He was going to take the zoo. He was going to take all the cats with him and leave you with pretty much nothing, so all of his wealth would stay with him. Is that the reason that you were scared? Is that the reason that you were tied down?
No. I think that was blown out of proportion. I think that's just hearsay because obviously I would have been left with, nothing in the divorce because you see when he passed, everything was in my name in his will, and so if there had been anything, official like in a divorce, we probably would have, split it 50-50.
It's funny you mentioned the will, Carole. The power of attorney that both of you had said she knew nothing about the will being changed, and you changed it to put the estate under your name. Why would you do this? Why would this happen? Did you do that? In fact, is that something that you did?
No, I had no idea. I didn't know until, after the fact.
It's kind of strange you say that as well. I mean, there was some wording and verbiage used in the will that honestly, I can say that I've never seen this kind of verbiage used. And it said if he disappears. Why would it say such a thing if he disappeared? Why would it not say if he died? Because, usually people, most people die. They don't just disappear. Huh, Carole?
Well, I guess you just have to ask him if you can find him. I still think he's probably down there in Costa Rica somewhere. There was never a body found, and
that's why we are.
The only thing we did find was his van. his van was at the airport.
Yeah,
And I
and
think he,
I have a few questions about that, Carol. The reason we're taking a look back into this case is, 2 plus 2 is starting to equal 5, and as we all know, that's just not how things add up around here. And mentioning the truck that was found, the vehicle that was found at the airport several days after your husband went missing, the night that Don went missing, you were out until 3 a.m. supposedly buying something for the cats. And then your brother that you supposedly don't talk to much and aren't close to, you ran into him at 3 a.m. in the morning with one of his partners, and your brother's, because your brother's a sheriff, and his partner is the one that brought you home. Carol, I just have to ask, the vehicle was found with the keys in the car, the briefcase was in there, everything but Don was in this vehicle, Carol. Did you plant this vehicle to make it look like your husband disappeared? Carol, it's time for you to start being honest with me.
Absolutely not. I didn't plant anything.
You've been giggling a lot through this interview. I don't find any of this funny. We're trying to get down to the bottom of this, and there's, like I said, it's not adding up. I don't see why the car would still have the keys in it. I don't see why you would be out until 3 a.m. And if you're not close to your brother, it's very coincidental, Carol, that you ran into him and his partner, and your car broke down, and your brother's partner had to bring you home. At that time of the morning, Carol, it just seems very suspicious, don't you think?
Well, I can see it, seeming that way, but, things happen. Crazier things have happened.
It's just very suspicious, and it doesn't add up, Carol. I'll just leave it at that. So I don't know what to tell you. The public eye is all on you. You got a lot of publicity right now. You have a lot of people looking at you, Carol, and you're not a monster, Carol. You're not. Nobody really thinks that, but if you keep denying this, if you keep putting this off, if you keep lying to me and not telling me the truth and being honest with me while we're sitting here, and then the truth does come out that you murdered your husband or something along those lines, Carol, people are going to start to look at you as a monster. And that's not what you want, is it?
The only person I think that thinks I'm a monster is in jail, and that's, Joe Exotic.
We are working on this case. It's back open, and we have a ton of eyes on it. And honestly, I'm just spitting the facts here, Carol. It looks like you could care less if we find out what happened to your husband. It seems like you could care less, and that to me is a huge red flag. But one thing I want to ask: did you put Don Lewis through the meat grinder and feed him to your cats? Be honest with me. This is not.
That is preposterous. I didn't do that. Have you seen how small that meat grinder is? There's no way I could fit him through there. For that to happen, I would have to do something crazy, like, I don't know, cut them up in teeny tiny little pieces and then feed those through the meat grinder and then feed them to all the cats. Do you know how much work that would take? There's no way that I did that.
So basically what you're telling me, if you would have done this, you would have had to have cut him up, and then you would have had to put him through the meat grinder and then feed the cats like you usually do, right?
I mean, if we're talking hypothetical here, then if I would have done something, it could have been something similar to that, or coating his clothes in, I don't know, sardine oil.
I don't think you're being straightforward with me, but I appreciate you coming in here into the station today for this interview willingly. If we need to get back in touch with you, don't be surprised if you have a phone call coming your way and we have to bring you back in for further, honestly, interrogation. So that's going to be it, Carol. I appreciate you coming in, and just keep your cell phone on off silent, because we're probably going to need you back in here pretty soon.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, and please come on down to Big Cat Rescue.